Summer is now underway, which means it is time to buy a convertible. But I presume everyone wants this, the original MX5. Now, if you want one of these, you're currently looking at £6,000 for one of these in good condition. However, perhaps you want something a bit more modern, in which case you could opt for the extremely stylish MX5 RF. Now, these are a tad more expensive at £12,500. So now, what I'm going to do is make a two-part video in which I look at alternatives for both these cars. So let's get into it. Car number one is the Fiat Barchetta. This small Italian sports car is based on Fiat Punto, so it is front-wheel drive. However, it's got the twin-cam engine from the Punto HGT, producing 130 horsepower, which really isn't that bad. It's about the same as a 1.8 litre MX5. And in the UK, these were only offered in left-hand drive, which, to be honest, isn't actually a problem for most countries. And considering it was built in 1995, you can actually import these over to America. So these cars are pretty cool. In fact, in the Top Gear Middle East special, the trio said that this was actually the best car of the three. Now, these can be found for half the price of an MX5. Mercedes SL280. Okay, this is the arguably best known generation of the Mercedes SL. Some would argue the peak SL. In fact, this was the generation that was famously offered with a 7.2 litre V12 that was used in the Pagani Zonda. This car, however, only has a 2.8 litre V6, or straight 6, actually. But either way, this is what you're getting for less than £6,000, but it's incredible that you could even find this generation for this kind of money. However, the only problem is you're only going to get an automatic, which I guess isn't too bad if you plan on using this for road trips. It is a bit bigger than the MX5, you can definitely fit more stuff in the back, and sure, it might be a bit thirsty, but still, it's incredibly stylish, and I think it's a really great vehicle if you want to turn some heads. You'll be able to find more powerful options, but this is probably what you want to go for. Honda CRX Del Sol. Now, this is a car I've recommended before in my first cars video, so you might already have an idea of what this thing's all about. This thing is pretty cool. It is a targa top, so you can use it all year, and with its Honda Civic roots, this car is extremely reliable. In fact, I mean, you can also modify this for days. The aftermarket is absolutely massive, and I know it's front-wheel drive, but that shouldn't take away from the fact that this car handles like an absolute beast. In fact, the CRX is one of the best handling front-wheel drive cars in the world. This is pretty much the maximum I've found these listed for. They're extremely cheap. BMW Z3. Now, if you like the idea of the Mercedes SL and wanted something a little bit smaller, then this might be the car for you. The Z3 has a 2.8 litre straight 6, which is a big engine for such a tiny car. In fact, this is around the same size as the MX5. Now, honestly, I was surprised that you could even get engines as big as this for the money. In fact, I expected to get something a bit smaller, but that is not the case. In fact, you may even be able to find a 3 litre for this price, but I would not go for that because it might not be as in good condition as this car. This engine was used in the BMW 328i, which is a tuner hero. In fact, these engines can be modified to the extreme and make perfect race cars and, as this video is demonstrating, great drift cars. They're very nimble, very agile, and perfect if you plan on taking your car on track this summer. £6,000 should get you a well looked after example with a manual gearbox. The Volkswagen Golf Clipper is a symbol of the 1980s. In fact, this is actually a Golf GTI Mark I with a soft top. Now, what's interesting about this car is this is still a Mark I, and yet they continued making it whilst they were still producing the Mark II. They never made a Mark II Cabriolet. So this car is actually a Mark I Golf for around half the price. So this thing is incredible. It's a brilliant little car. In fact, you can actually fit 4 people in there, and there's still space in the back for luggage. it's economical, it's fun, and it is an amazing car which will turn heads wherever you go. Clean examples can be found for less than £5,000. The second generation BMW Z4 was the first BMW to be styled in and out by two female designers, and honestly I think they nailed it. With its hardtop retractable roof, which means this car is usable all year round, this car is very, very cool. It's a bit more beefy than the Z3 and it's more practical too, and it's way more powerful. This thing has 254 horsepower from its naturally aspirated 3 litre straight 6, and it's got a 6-speed manual, which makes for great driving performance. This is a proper driving machine and it's great to take out on track or just cruise the lanes during the summer. A clean manual example with low miles can be found for £12,500. The Toyota MR2 Mark I. Now, when you see this car, the first words that come to mind are snap oversteer. Yeah, this car has not got a great reputation. However, this is a Japanese legend, and the fact that you can find these for £12,500 or less is absolutely remarkable to me. In fact, this car is as famous, if not more famous, than cars like the 300ZX. This car is very well known, and yet it's super cheap. However, if you want to buy one of these, you better be a very good driver. This thing does not play nice with new drivers. This thing can snap oversteer if you even take your eyes off the road for 1 second. So you've got to be extremely careful when driving this. However, if you treat this right, this is a fantastic driving machine and will treat you well if you look after it. And staggeringly, they're actually found for way cheaper than this. Now, how could I not mention this, the Porsche Boxster? When this car was introduced, Porsche enthusiasts looked down their noses and laughed until they drove it, and then they found it was a beautifully balanced mid-engined car which loved to play in the high revs and dance through all these beautiful mountain roads. Now, the Porsche Boxster is expensive to maintain, but it is the most powerful car on the list and it has the biggest engine. This thing is an absolutely beautiful piece of engineering, and honestly, once you drive it, you will be hooked. This car is absolutely amazing and it's the bargain of the century, costing way less than a Mark IV MX5. £12,500 should get you a very clean S model. Honda S2000. This car was, believe it or not, designed to compete with the Porsche Boxster. Now, that is saying something about this car. It's got 236 horsepower from a naturally aspirated 2-litre inline-4, which is honestly surprising. It's got VTEC. This engine is insanely tunable, and it's rear-wheel drive, so it's great fun. It's also a brilliant-looking car, and honestly, it's probably cheaper to run than the Porsche, and is definitely the better buy. That said, however, these are not the bargain they once were. Alfa Romeo Spider. Now, this is not the best recommendation, I admit. It will probably fall apart due to rust. Though the thing is, this was the last traditional 2-seater roadster before the MX5 came out. In fact, they're very similar cars, rear-wheel drive, around 130 horsepower, but this still has some of that old style. This is a beautiful car and is a great driving machine when it works. Prices can fluctuate, but these can be found for well under 10 grand. So if you do want to convert this summer, go ahead, buy an MX5, but do consider these cars if you want to stand out and look cool. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more in the future, and until next time, goodbye.